Welcome to the Breakup Recovery Podcasts by your host, Barbara Stevens. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Barbara Stevens, breakup recovery mentor, author, and public speaker. Barbara offers programs and solutions for any breakup so you can turn your life around, create lasting changes for the better, and embrace life again.
Welcome to Breakup Recovery Podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm Barbara Stevens, and Breakup Recovery is a podcast helping you recover from your breakup. In this week's episode, I welcome Michelle Chalfant. Michelle is a therapist, speaker, and author, and Michelle is here today on Breakup Recovery Podcast to talk about how your limiting beliefs and false stories can keep you stuck and prevent you from moving forward after your breakup. And Michelle will share a lot more tips and ideas. So welcome, Michelle.
Well, hi, Barbara. So nice of you to have me on today. Thank you.
So, Michelle, why do you think our limiting beliefs and false stories can hold us back from recovering after a breakup?
So, and I do want to touch on that, but I want to back up one step further, because that happens, in my opinion, secondarily. What happens first, I believe, is when there's a breakup, we have a lot of emotions around that breakup, right? We might feel grief, we might feel shame, anger, sadness, all of these types of emotions. And what I have found in my practice is that people, or I should say in general, humans are not good at feeling their emotions. So instead what we do is we use vices. So that might look like grabbing a glass, if I'm upset and I call you, you might say, oh, just go and have a glass of wine. You'll feel fine tomorrow. Or, let's go out to eat something. So we find other things to do so that we don't feel our feelings. So what happens is our feelings get stuck inside of us. And instead of feeling our feelings, the mind or the ego comes in and starts making up stories. Okay? So these stories are things like, so-and-so broke up with me because blah, 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 blah. And they may not be true. So we get very fixated on these stories, and that's what keeps us stuck. So the reason that we go into so many stories and assumptions is that we're not feeling our feelings. So if we could feel our feelings or emotions, we would not land in this, what I call story land. Does that make sense?
So what do we do with our emotions? How do we work through that process?
That's a great question. And I have a lot of people that say, I don't even know how to feel my emotions. In fact, when I work with people, often I'll say, okay, or I'll ask them, so what are you feeling? And they'll say, I don't know. And I'll say, where are you feeling it? And they'll say, I don't feel it anywhere. What does that even mean? So our emotions are very much deep within us. And I would say that they're in what I would call the inner child part, which is it's inside of us. So we want to, first of all, become aware that I'm feeling something. I don't even care if we label our emotions, but we're feeling something. I tell people to take a deep breath. Let's do some slow breathing, because typically what happens is as these emotions are rising up, our brain, we have the ruminating thoughts and the brain goes faster. The mind wants to make up stories again. But when we slow everything down, it gives the body a chance to start allowing these emotions to rise up through it. So one thing that I do is I ask people just to slow down. Let's get back in the body. I might do some breathing techniques with them, or some breathing exercises, visualizations where we're just kind of grounding back into the body. And then I invite people just to feel, if they don't know what their emotions are, what is happening in the body. And if you don't know, close your eyes, take a moment, and just tune into the physical body. And I sit with people and they'll say, well, I don't feel anything. And then I'll say, okay, just let's give it a moment and see what happens. What I find happening is the body starts to let us know what's happening. So we might feel like a slight pinch in the stomach, or a knot in the throat, or, the breathing is short, or the chest is really tight. So I invite people just to watch that feeling in the physical body. And when we follow that feeling, what happens is emotions start to move. Again, it doesn't even matter if we know what those emotions are, but we let the emotions move through the body. Does that all make sense?
So I guess what you're saying is it's very important to acknowledge that you are having feelings, you are having emotions. And if you don't, you hold them back, or you tell yourself these other stories that stops you from acknowledging what is really going on in your life and dealing with those emotions and things so that you can move forward.
It's really interesting. And yes to everything you said, because when we don't feel our emotions, we remain stuck. And after a breakup, we want to move on. We want to move forward. We want clarity. We want all of these things. We cannot get them if we're, again, living in the stories or making up assumptions. And maybe he or she will call me back and maybe we'll get back together. And we live in this land of hope and maybe. So, and that all might happen, but it doesn't help us to move on. It doesn't help us to we want to stay connected to ourselves, and we do that by feeling our emotions. So for people that do know what's going on inside of them as far as their emotions go, and I mean something like, I just feel a lot of pain, I feel a lot of anger. Okay, journaling is fantastic. Journaling is fantastic in order to help people start processing some of these emotions. And I remember years ago, do you remember the woman Jill Bolte Taylor? She wrote a Stroke of Insight, I think it was called. She was on Oprah many years ago. She had a stroke, and she actually lost for 6 months the left hemisphere of her brain. So she was only able to live in the right hemisphere, meaning she sat in emotion. And what she realized was when we're truly in emotion and feeling our emotions, they only last 90 seconds when we're in them. And what I would add to that is, and the reason that we last in these negative or sad emotions longer than 90 seconds is because we're in the story about it. So when we go into the mind, as the body's releasing the emotion and it's coming up through us, the mind, when it tries to make sense of why the breakup happened and what I could have done in a different way, and maybe this person will want me back, and we go into these ideas in the mind, that's what keeps us stuck. So by feeling our emotions, it brings us to a new place. When the emotions come through us, we have a sense of clarity, but we've got to get the emotions to move. And so many of us don't really, again, know how to do that. So journaling, sitting with the body, taking some nice, slow, deep breath. And then also, this is fabulous for people to help getting the emotions through. Well, you find a friend or someone that really cares about you, and you set up a meeting where you are able to sit and express how you're feeling, whether it be crying, whether it be yelling, screaming, venting, or just talking, whatever it is. You invite someone to come and just witness what's going on with you. And I'm not saying the person's going to get crazy and throw something through a window. It's just letting the emotions come up and through. So often when we're witnessed in that way, it's such a healing experience for us. We just want someone to witness what's going on with us. We just want to feel heard. And as you know, people typically want to fix us. So if I say to you, I'm in a really, really bad place, so-and-so just broke up with me, I'm in a terrible place, typically our friends and family and loved ones, they want to fix us. You know what I mean? They'll say, oh, it's not so bad, and don't worry about it, and you're going to meet another person, don't worry about, and they go into this fix-it mode, which doesn't help us. It never helps us. It makes us feel better for like a minute, and then we're back in our pain. This is why we've got to go back to the pain. This is how we move forward. We've got to get inside of ourselves. Does this make sense?
Yeah, so we need to feel the pain, and then to move through that pain, there's obviously a number of steps which you've touched on, the journaling, the meditation, and having somebody to talk to, or any other steps you can advise that people can do to move through their pain and their anguish.
Yeah, if I may comment on when we invite someone just to listen to us and witness us, make sure you set it up so that that other person knows you don't want to be fixed. You just really want to feel heard. So please don't, respond or react to what I'm saying. I just need to get this off my chest, and have them just listen. But another technique that I love and tool that I use with my clients is called EFT, that emotional freedom technique. It's fabulous for helping those emotions that are stuck move through us. Have you had anyone on the show that's talked about EFT?
I have, and I've actually used it myself. I have a bit of vertigo every now and again, and a dizzy spell will come on quite violently. And if I tap just past my eyes and on top of my eyebrows underneath my nose, my chin, and on my collarbone and say a certain mantra. It definitely helps me through that process, and I come out of that dizzy spell not so anxious and depressed about it.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Because you're releasing it out of your meridians. It's out of the body. So you're moving emotion through, which is beautiful. But yeah, that is another thing. I have a video on my YouTube channel that I have kind of combined, because EFT has been around, since I think it was 1996. So there's so many versions out there. And I created a version that is just a very basic version that actually works with anything physical or emotional. So it takes 2 or 3 minutes, and it really does help move us out of that stuck place. That's the thing, in my opinion, with breakups, is that we get stuck because we live in the stories. And like you said before, we have these limiting beliefs. So the limiting beliefs play into our stories and our assumptions that we're going to be stuck forever, we'll never meet anyone again. We go into this inner dialogue, and the way to stop the inner dialogue again is to drop into feeling. Another thing that I just wanted to touch on is if we can find comfort in the fact that, in my opinion, I really believe that we come in, our souls come here, and we're on a mission. And that mission is for experience. And we come in to experience everything that we can while we're down here. And there's somewhat of a plan, I think, for all of us. Or one of the ways that we experience so much, of course, is in relationship, whether it be a friendship or an intimate relationship with somebody. So we come together with people in order to learn from them. And when that learning is over, I find that the relationship ends. And it doesn't mean we did anything wrong or they did anything wrong. It just might mean it's just over and it's time to break up and it's done. And it's not a bad thing. But if we can reach up for a higher truth, and that would be that we really are here for a purpose. There's something greater than us that is guiding all of this. And each relationship that we have, when it's kind of served its time with us, it's done, and it's not a bad thing, but it's hard when we're in the minute. I know what it's like to feel the pain of a breakup. It's hard to remember that, but when I reach for that truth, I'll say, okay, I get it. I really do get it. I think there's someone else coming for me, and this relationship is done serving me, and I'm done serving them.
And I think that thought often comes into your mind when you know that you are over that breakup and that you have processed your emotions and you are moving forward.
I agree, 100%. 100%. Yes, for sure.
So, Michelle, you have a podcast called The Adult's Chair. Tell me what listeners could get out of that podcast, or what is that podcast all about?
Well, it is a podcast, and if I could put it in a 1 sentence or a 2 sentence kind of line, it's a podcast that teaches people how to love themselves and live the highest version of themselves, so the healthiest version of themselves. How do you live authentically? And I find that, how we're raised, because none of us had perfect parents. None of us had, some of us had sort of healthy parents, but most of us did not. We end up living lives kind of buried under masks, and we live our lives trying to please others or show up in a certain way so that we're lovable, we're not rejected, that kind of thing. We grow up with codependency, adult children of alcoholics, we have anxiety, depression. These are all things that we talk about on this podcast. And the podcast is based on this model called the Adult Chair. It's incredibly easy to use. And it's really a culmination of about 25 years of not only psychological techniques, but very spiritual techniques as well, and tools and learnings and understandings kind of merged all into one. And so we do a lot with meditation and guided visualization and energy medicine kinds of tools, but it's all broken down so anybody can understand it. It's very user-friendly. So I have this podcast. I also have quite a few meditations. They're guided meditations, so I have them on my website. And also on a YouTube channel. And that was one thing I wanted to bring up too, Barbara, which is I have a meditation which is great when we've ended any kind of relationship, but specifically a breakup. It's called Cutting of the Cords. So, when we're with another person, we have these energetic cords that are tied to us from them to us. And there's a beautiful meditation that I created, and it's lovely because it helps us to cut those cords. And it doesn't mean we're severing that relationship forever. We're cutting the dysfunctional cords. So I have a meditation that guides you through how to do that and get more in connection with yourself to find that self-love all over again and let that other person go, but in a very loving way. It's a beautiful. So it's on my website or YouTube.
And so if people want to find out more about what you do, Michelle, or connect with you, where can they find this information?
Gosh, they can go to theadultchair.com, which is my website where the podcast is located as well. Or it's, of course, on iTunes and Google Play and that kind of thing. Or just go directly to michellchalfant.com. So it's just MichellChalfant.com. And that's my website. Michelle Chalfant is the YouTube channel. I've got fan page, Instagram. I just started Instagram, Barbara. Just started that. Oh, but we also have a closed group. It's called the Adult Chair Closed Group, and it's really for people that are wanting some deeper help. It's a group of beautiful people that's very vulnerable. We really share our personal experiences in there, and we use this model and help people to heal from whatever that they're going through. So it's a great place to find really great support and love with anything that you're going through. And that's just, you have to go to my website, Michelle Chalfant, in order to join that group because it is a closed group.
Michelle, I'll put the link to your website in the show notes. Thank you for coming on Breakup Recovery podcast today and sharing your tips and your ideas and your strategies about how to process the negative emotions and to understand your limiting beliefs and your false stories. They are holding you back, and how important it is to deal and feel with your emotional pain so that you can move forward after your separation or divorce or your breakup.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Breakup Recovery Podcast, number 111, How to Stop Holding Yourself Back and Find Happiness After Your Breakup, with Michelle Chalfant. I think that Michelle made sense in that you can easily stay stuck after a breakup if you believe all the false stories that you are telling yourself, which most of the time are things from the past that you can't change, or assumptions that have no real truth to them. Your limiting beliefs such as, I can't move forward, I don't know how to get over this breakup, my life is ruined, things like that, will also stop you from moving forward and finding happiness again. Michelle shared quite a few techniques that will help you to stop these limiting beliefs and false stories. I've put the link to Michelle's website on the show notes, and be sure to look for Michelle Chalfant on YouTube to check out her guided meditations. If you think the information shared in this podcast could help someone you know, I hope you will tell them about Breakup Recovery Podcast and share it with them so they too can get some ideas and strategies and tips to help them through their own breakup. They can download it in Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio and my website. I would appreciate it if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I love to read the reviews. It keeps me inspired to continue and also shows me that people are listening and getting value from the content delivered in each episode. We are fast approaching the end of 2017, and I'm going to be taking a hiatus for a few months. As you can guess by my accent that I live in Australia, and our summer is just about to start. This is the time of year where we go on vacation, spend time with our families, and that's what I want to do. So I've decided to take a break and will resume the podcast in late February 2018. I have been doing Breakup Recovery podcasts for 2 years now without a break, and there are so many episodes for you to listen to, so I hope you do. I have one more episode to complete before the middle of December, and please look out for that in the usual place you find my podcast. And the last thing I'd like to say is, be gentle on yourself. You deserve happiness.
If you would like to hear previous Breakup Recovery podcasts, visit barbarastevens.com.au. Connect with Barbara Stevens on social media with Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor on Facebook and at You'll Be Okay on Twitter. Read further blogs, view webinar replays, and download your free ebook, 3 Easy Steps to Surviving Your Breakup, and much more at barbarastevens.com.au.